Respected elders, my dear sisters and brothers, Sai Ram to all of you. Thank you for this opportunity to join all of you, especially in the backdrop of your pilgrimage to Prasanthi. Um, it's always wonderful to have devotees travel all the way to Prasanthi, and I've had this opportunity to tell you this before, uh, that it is not just a beautiful journey for all of you. Prasanthi Nilayam, as we all know, is a very, very important and special place for all of us. And in everyone's spiritual journey, to be in Prasanthi Nilayam, even for a few days, is a very special thing, right? That's a blessing that Swami gives, has been giving to so many scores of devotees over the many decades. Which means when people come to Prasanthi Nilayam, something happens to them inwardly. So the uh, the atmosphere in Prasanthi Nilayam has been curated for that spiritual progress of every individual. And if Swami is allowing you to come and not merely enjoy that atmosphere, but even add to it, when you come and make a program in Sai Kulwant Hall, when you come and become the coordinators for the important celebrations such as Christmas, it means Swami is allowing you to join hands with him to curate that atmosphere for spiritual aspirants who are coming here for their own spiritual journey. And that's not an ordinary thing. That's a very, very special thing. That's why an opportunity such as this that comes your way, needless to say, grab it with both hands. It's a difficult time that we all are going through. It seems to be coming our way every few years these days. In the early part of the decade, we labored through and weathered through the pandemic, and now it's the global crisis which is happening. And I'm sure it's not a very easy decision to make to travel with family across the globe. Maybe before I go into the topic, I thought I'll just share a beautiful episode that I read a long time ago in one of the old Sanatan Charities about a trip to Prasanthi Nilayam. This was the experience of Miss Indra Devi. Most of you must have heard her name, a very senior devotee, internationally acclaimed yoga teacher. So she would come to Patti whenever she could. And those days, Swami used to spend a lot of time in Vrindavan. So she used to spend time in Vrindavan with Swami. But nevertheless, it was not an easy thing to make that trip. She had to plan her finances in such a way that she could make about 2 trips a year. That's what she could afford with her earnings. So one time, it was maybe a few weeks before Swami's birthday celebrations. She was in her house in the US in front of Swami's altar, and she was doing her morning prayers or whatever was her sadhana. And for whatever reason, she suddenly felt, Swami, your birthday is coming, and I don't think I can come for your birthday. Because it was not one of those trips that was planned in her year, right? She used to come, I think, closer to Guru Purnima and maybe for Christmas. So she couldn't make that another trip in between. But then, for whatever reason, she suddenly had this desire. She said, Swami, I wish I could come for your birthday celebrations, but then I can't afford it. She just made a prayer, and that thought, she offered it in front of Swami, and she left it at that. A couple of days later, she gets a phone call, and this person on the other side introduces himself as calling from a very famous production house, Warner Brothers. So this person said, I'm an agent from Warner Brothers, and we want to make a documentary film on Bhagawan, Sri Sathya Sai Baba. And we inquired around, and we heard that you're a person who's a devotee who's very close to Baba. So we have a proposal for you. We would like you to go on behalf of us and request Swami for permission to make this documentary. And they said, we would be happy to book your tickets back and forth. And all you have to do is pray on our behalf to Sai Baba for this permission to do this documentary on him. She was immensely delighted because this was a direct answer to the prayer that she had made to Swami just a while ago. So she was more than happy, and very quickly the tickets were sent to her. And she had to go to Swami, and it was Swami's birthday time. And she could just go there, enjoy the celebrations, and she would invariably get an interview or two every time she would visit Parthi. So she thought that when Swami calls me for an interview, I just have to take permission for this documentary. So all excited, she packs herself up and she goes to Parthi. And when she comes to Parthi, Swami is happy to see her, calls her for an interview. And Swami speaks about all her yoga classes and her sadhana and all of that. And she completely forgets about this assignment of asking for this permission for this documentary. And then the birthday celebrations begin, and then she's completely lost in that. She spends a few weeks in the blissful company of Swami, gets on her flight back to the US, and lands back home. And once she reaches home, she is reminded of this assignment with which she was actually sent to India. And she felt terribly bad that she had completely forgotten about it. And this company has spent so much on her tickets, sent her all the way, and she has not been able to get this permission that they were hoping that she would help them with. So immediately she pulls out her directory and finds the number for the production house. And she calls them and she wants to tell them that she's really sorry that she went all the way, but she couldn't get the permission. And when she called and she said she's so and so, and this is the reason she's calling, they said, whom do you want to speak to? Who spoke to you? Who called you? Do you know the name of the agent? And she's pretty much had no clue about who called her. But she said, I know that I got a call and I got tickets from your place. And a few calls back and forth later, they come back to her and say that uh, we think that you're completely mistaken. Nobody from Warner Brothers has reached out to you. We don't have any idea about who Sathya Sai Baba is, and we have no plans of making any movie on him. And we have no idea who's reached out to you. It's got nothing to do with us. Uh, well, a devotee, a seasoned devotee that she is, she was filled with gratitude because she knew that this whole thing was a play that Swami had done to bless her with the opportunity to come to Parthi. So yes, coming to Prasanthi Nilayam needs a lot of planning, needs a lot of financial planning, and it's not easy. Few of us have been blessed immensely to be here, and for me, traveling to Prasanthi Nilayam is a 10-minute walk from my home. It's a blessing that some of us have been given by Swami. But for those others, yes, it is not easy. It is a commitment that needs to be made. But the whole idea of relating this episode is actually, at the end of the day, the only thing that we make is the prayer that Swami, we would like to come. Swami, we would like to spend that time in your Prasanthi Nilayam. And I think it is Swami who makes that happen. It is Swami who enables what is required to give us that opportunity. So those of you who are still in two minds, if you've not booked your tickets, you can at least book your prayer, isn't it? Make your prayer to Swami. I'm sure he will make it happen. Because as I always say, what makes a person a spiritual aspirant, right? Is it that me being in Prasanthi Nilayam makes me a spiritual aspirant? Or if somebody is in the world, somebody is in one of the big cities like Sydney or Melbourne, does that make you a worldly person? What makes one a spiritual person is not where he or she is or what she or he is doing. What makes a spiritual person is what are the aspirations one entertains in the mind, right? If my aspirations are spiritual, I'm a spiritual aspirant. If my aspirations are worldly, I'm a worldly person. So whether you come or not, if your aspirations our aspirations are to be with Swami, I think that really is the first step. Coming to the topic that you've chosen, I will come to the theme Karishye Vachanam Tava. It's very close to my heart. I have spoken extensively about it on many occasions, and some of you might have even heard about it, heard of it from me. But nevertheless, I will come to that. This discourse that was chosen was a very beautiful one. All discourses of Swami are beautiful, but it was very interesting to see what you had chosen. Discourse that Swami, I think, delivered, I think, in 66 on this theme of the true tablet. I mean, interestingly, the word tablet just comes only once in the entire discourse. For whatever reason, they've chosen to give that as the title for this discourse. But there is a passage in that discourse I'd like to start with, where Swami says, life itself is a pilgrimage. And then he describes the nature of this pilgrimage. He says how unique this pilgrimage is. He says, in this pilgrimage, I quote, when the road ends and the goal is gained, the pilgrim finds that he has traveled only from himself to himself. That the way was long and lonesome, but the God that led him unto it was all the while in him, around him, with him, and beside him. He himself was always divine. His yearning to merge in God was but the sea calling to the ocean. Man loves because he is love. He craves for melody and harmony because he is melody and harmony. He sees joy for he is joy. He thirsts for God for he is composed of God and he cannot exist without him. End of quote. What a beautiful passage and what a beautiful description of this journey of life that we all are trying to reach. We're talking about pilgrimages, we're talking about making a life's journey, but so categorically Swami is saying in this that this journey is from you to yourself. This journey is actually an illusion, right? Because you don't get anywhere, you don't travel to any place, because what you're searching is within you, the destination is yourself. There is this beautiful episode that Swami would narrate about Adi Shankara. We all know about the work Bhaja Govindam, where Adi Shankara sees this Pandit who's trying to master Sanskrit grammar, and he tells him that, what are you wasting your time at the time of calling the last moments? All of this knowledge is not going to come to your rescue, Bhaja Govindam. That's how the birth of the work Bhaja Govindam happens. So Swami says that, Swami is, Shankara is in the holy town of Benares or Varanasi. And as part of that pilgrimage, he's there with his disciples, giving his discourses, debating with all the scholars, trying to explain his concept of Advaita Vedanta. And at the end of it, he goes to the Kashi Vishwanath temple to have darshan of the lingam there. And when he stands before the lingam, Adi Shankara makes 3 prayers. He says, I would like to offer my apologies for 3 sins that I've committed. That's what he says standing in front of the lingam or Kashi Vishwanath Mandir. And he looks at the lingam and he says, these are the 3 sins I have to confess to and apologize for. And he says, the first thing is, the Lord is beyond description. He says, the Lord is described as Yato Vacho Nivartante Aprapya Manasasaha. He is described as Anirvachaniya, that which cannot be described with words, that which cannot be comprehended with the reasoning mind. Such a Lord, Adi Shankara says, I have been writing praises about and writing stotrams and describing your glory. After having said that you cannot be described, I have tried to describe you. That is disharmony in thought, word, and deed. And I apologize for that. And the second thing he says is, the Lord is omnipresent. Right? The Parabrahman is all-pervasive. Having acknowledged that you are all-pervasive, I have come to Kashi to have your darshan. I apologize for this disharmony in thought, word, and deed. And the final thing he says is, the very principle of Advaita Vedanta is Brahma Satyam, Jagan Mithya, Jivo Devo na apara. This Jivatma and that Paramatma are not separate. They are not distinct. Having said that, I stand in front of you as a devotee and I am praying and I am offering uh, my apologies for the mistakes that I've done. And this is the third sin that I'm committing. Truly speaking, this is the journey of every individual. When Swami is everywhere, why do I have to make a pilgrimage to Puttaparthi? When I and Swami are one, why do I have to sit and do sadhana, do bhajans, do any form of inquiry or japam, dhyana, whatever you would like to qualify that as? It seems very, very paradoxical. It seems hypocritical. But nevertheless, this really is the journey that we all are going through. And there is a certain reason for that. When you go through Swami's discourses, this is something that I often think. Uh, when Swami would give a discourse in the Sai Kulwant Hall, we all have seen that the whole setup, how it is. Right in front of Swami, the students' block used to be there. Most of us, teenagers or in our early 20s. And then you would have all these learned professors and doctors, very well educated people. You would have the VIPs sitting there. And to Swami's left would be all the children from the primary school. And they would be typically early teens to maybe even 8 or 9 year olds. Swami's discourse was addressed to such a varied audience. And this was not merely in age, it was even in spiritual maturity. Many were seated in front of Swami with their problems and seeking succor for their daily troubles. There were some others who were inquisitive spiritual seekers. Many of us were devotees who were just there adoring Swami and Swami's presence. There were many others who were spiritually advanced seekers. So Swami's discourses were addressed to all this variety. And that is why sometimes you find that you'll take one discourse of Swami, and in the beginning of the discourse, Swami will be speaking about this hypocrisy of searching for God. He'll say, when God is everywhere, how foolish it is to search for him. But the same Swami, in the same discourse later, he will speak about purifying one's heart and experiencing God's presence. It is paradoxical when you look at it, because the truth has already been given to us. The truth is, I am as divine as Swami. The truth is, there is no place where I cannot but see him. The truth is, he is all pervasive, which means he has left no space for you and me. There is no place for an entity called myself when I believe that he is all pervasive. But having said that, is the truth enough? Is the knowledge of the truth enough? I remember hearing about this experience of a doctor who served in Swami's General Hospital. And he was a spiritual aspirant. And whenever he would get the opportunity to sit with Swami, he would put forth all his doubts. And Swami would be kind enough to clarify them for him. On one such occasion, he was sitting in front of Swami and he was talking about some very hi-fi Vedantic concept. And he was asking Swami, how do I wrap my mind around this idea that I am divine and everything else is divine? How does one understand this? And Swami was trying to explain to him, how he does in his discourses. At one point, this devotee got a bit exasperated, and he, of course, had the proximity to Swami to take liberties with Swami. So he said, Swami, all of this is fine, but all of this is still theory. I don't experience it. I don't experience this idea that I'm divine and everything around me is divine. He said, till I experience it, everything is just theory to me. So Swami looks at him and Swami says, oh, so you need to experience, is it? You need an experience. He said, yes, Swami, but otherwise it just feels like it is theoretical. And I really don't think it is possible for me to even feel that state. So Swami says, okay, I will give you the experience, Swami says. And Swami draws him closer. Swami says, come near me. And Swami was sitting on his throne and he was kneeling down. Swami draws him closer and Swami whispers in his ears. Swami says, Tat Tvam Asi. Right? The Mahavakyas from Vedas. Swami says, Tat Tvam Asi. And well, I don't know how to describe what happened after that, because whatever description we give is an expression of our own imagination. You can imagine how this must have happened, because it graphically changed the way he was looking at things around him. As he was looking at Swami, everything became bright, perhaps. As I said, I don't know what exactly he experienced, but the essence of that experience is he felt that it was Swami all around him and there was nothing other than Swami. The person sitting in front of him was Swami. The chair he was seated on was Swami. The floor the chair was on was Swami. The walls were Swami. The lights were Swami. Everything was only Swami. And he looked at himself and he could see nothing but Swami. And he was in this daze of this experience, and he went back to the hospital where he was offering his services, and the experience continued. He kept seeing Swami in his patients, in his colleagues, in his the workers there, and everybody. And the experience lasted for a few days, maybe 2 or 3 days. At the end of it, as dramatically as it occurred, it faded away. Then he went back to Swami and he said, Swami, it's gone. You gave me the experience and it is gone. And Swami said, yes, it is just an experience. But what you experience is a state that you can reach. Right? This is not something fanciful. This is a state that you can reach. And I just gave you a glimpse of it. And I took it away because you still have work to do. And this is not to be granted to you. It needs to be earned. When I hear this experience, when I think of this experience, what occurs to me is, how many times have I heard this Mahavakya being pronounced? Tattvamasi. That thou art. Right? That's what it means. You are that divinity that you are searching for. I've heard this Tattvamasi so many times, and I've heard it from Swami. Right? There are many, many discourses when I've been seated in the Kulwant Hall and Swami was speaking about this very topic, and he has thundered these words, Tattvam Asi. In fact, there's one beautiful discourse in one of the summer courses where Swami explains this Tattvam Asi very beautifully. I think 91 summer showers, if I'm not wrong. And beautiful examples Swami gives. He says, when a sculptor was making this idol, the chips that had fallen away, they look at the idol that is being worshipped and say Tattvamasi. The wave looks at the ocean and says Tattvamasi. Right? Swami gives beautiful examples like that. And thing is, so many times Swami says Tattvamasi, Tattvamasi, Tattvamasi. Why didn't it give me the experience? And this whole idea that everything is divine and God is everywhere, I think few years of being a devotee of Swami or student of Swami, you know this for a fact, right? You know this. This is the whole deal. But we know it, but it doesn't seem to have made the difference in my life. At least I can be honest about my own. I remember hearing an episode that was narrated by another devotee of Swami, who also happened to be a doctor. This happened in Swami's room, Swami's personal quarters, and Swami was reclining on his bed, and this devotee who was in Swami's presence on that day was seated down and he was talking to Swami, and Swami was also giving him some explanation about some spiritual topic. So Swami was there reclining on his bed, and there was a student of Swami who was sitting on the bed, and Swami, he was performing Swami's Padaseva or something like that. That is giving you a picture of that setup as much as I can imagine it. I don't know really if this is how it was, but this was the scene. Swami in his personal quarters, this doctor talking to Swami, and the student serving Swami. And Swami was talking something, and all of a sudden, the student who was doing Padaseva for Swami, he suddenly got up and he went towards the windowsill where there was a clock which was kept, and it was those olden type clock, right? It wouldn't run on battery, but you had to wind it. It's that winding type alarm clock. So, just as he was doing Padaseva for Swami, this boy's eyes fell on this alarm clock and he realized that the clock wasn't working. So he just got up to wind it and set it to the right time and keep it there. And when he was doing this, all of a sudden, Swami was taken aback that this boy got up and was doing something else. And Swami saw what he was doing. And then Swami turned to this doctor and remarked, he said, "Look at this boy. He's serving Swami, right? He is serving Swami, and he is getting up from this and going and fixing the clock." Swami is just describing the scene as it happened. But when Swami described it, the meaning that it was conveying was completely uh, different and a little more deeper, as you can, I hope you get the drift of it as I'm saying. Swami is saying that when you have the opportunity to serve the Lord, you're trying to go and fix the world, right? Literally in that sense. Swami said, when he is here serving me, he is going and fixing the clock. And the boy, who was not one to, take take a comment like that, Swami gives us that space sometimes. And this boy was serving Swami, so he must have had that proximity and that freedom to speak his mind sometimes. So he looked at Swami and said, "Swami, what does it matter? How does it matter? This clock is you too, isn't it? I am serving you. I am serving this form, Satya Sai. But I'm fixing this clock. Isn't this clock divine too? Is everything divine?" As I said, we've all been students of Swami and devotees of Swami. This much knowledge we all have, right? This much information we all have been given. So this student, he says, "Swami, everything is divine. Why should you say that I'm leaving you and doing something else with the world? Where is the difference between you and the world?" Right? In that sense. Swami said, "Oh, is that so?" And then Swami turned to this doctor and Swami said, "See, this is what using knowledge for convenience is." Something to that effect, Swami said. This is what is referred to as convenient philosophy. Swami said, "You don't truly believe what you are saying." Swami said, "You don't believe what you are saying, but you're using it as an argument. You're using it as an argument, but you don't really have complete faith in what you are saying." It's a very simple episode, right? And it's something that we all can be guilty of, because we all tend to do this, right? In an argument, either playfully or to get our way across, we tend to say this, instead of so many people will say this, "Oh, the Swami in me is telling you this, so you listen to me." The most important point is, it is not about merely knowing it. It's not merely about hearing Tattvamasi. It is not about uh, having this fact that everything is divine. This journey is from the self to the self. It is about realizing the truth. And when the truth is realized, the way we will approach it will be completely different. And for this journey, in that particular discourse that you had selected for your study, once again, a wonderful discourse, so very crisp and so beautiful. Every theme that it gives across is so very important and so very beautiful. And one of the important themes that it touches upon is this concept of idol worship. When everything is divine, why do we consider some things as divine and worship them? When God is formless, why do we insist on giving him a form and worshipping that form? And Swami explains that whole thing in that discourse, that concept of why is it? And again, just quoting a few lines from that discourse, Swami says, and I quote, "The seeker elevates the stone image into a replica of God. He does not reduce God into a stone. The idol is just a container, prompter, a base, a reminder, a residence which God is invited to occupy. The supreme is not squeezed into the small. The small is recognized as symbolic of the supreme." How beautiful is that? The immensity of the Lord is not squeezed into the small, but the small is seen as, in essence, as divine as that supreme expanse. And then Swami, of course, goes into speaking about why this is not a meaningless practice. When you look at this whole blessing that has come our way of recognizing the avatar in his present form, the Supreme Lord has come. And what happens when he takes an advent? When you really look at it, what happens when you say that the divine manifests in a human form? I'm not going to go into the whole history of the Sathya Sai avatar. I will just make a few references to some episodes that happen in Swami's life. One of the earliest references where Swami reveals his nature is an episode that happened on the 23rd of May, 1940, when Swami had come back from Uravakunda. I think it was during the summertime. Swami had come back to Puttaparthi, and somebody comes running to Swami's father, Vedavenkamaraju, and tells him, "Do you know what your son is doing? He's going around materializing vibhuti and giving it to people." So this was something that Swami had been doing with his classmates and with his playmates. So for the first time, Swami started doing all of these things openly. So the father was a bit irked. They were trying to, quote unquote, cure this boy, but this boy suddenly seems to be, all of these kind of weird activities are resurfacing. So the father gets very perturbed. So the father picks up a stick, comes to this little boy, and he says, "Who are you?" Because he thinks that the boy is possessed. He says, "Who are you and why are you doing all of this?" In reply to that, Swami says, and later in his discourses, Swami would quote that padyam. Swami says in Telugu, "Nenu sayini teliyumu nikkamuganu." When the father asks, "Who are you?" he says, "Nenu sayini teliyumu nikkamuganu." Know that I am Sai. The context of the thing is Swami saying, I am not possessed by some spirit called Sai. I am not occupied by some saint called Sai Baba. He says, Nenu Sayini. Know that I am Sai. Come to think of it, we repeatedly hear from Swami the statement that he often says that you can call God by any name. There are any number of experiences where devotees have not even heard of Swami's name, but Swami would manifest in his form and bless them. And later Swami would say that, yes, he was devoted to some name, but how does it matter? That name is still mine. A beautiful episode that I often recollect in this context is when this happened sometime in Vrindavan in the 70s. Some of you would have seen the pictures of old Vrindavan, Swami's old bungalow before the Thrai Vrindavan was built. And around the old bungalow, there used to be many cages where Swami used to have pet deers, rabbits, and birds, and many such pets were being taken care of by Swami and his students. So it was one afternoon, Swami had finished his morning darshan and interviews, and Swami had retired for the afternoon. Swami would only come back later in the evening when devotees would come back in the evening for darshan. And typically Swami's routine was such that once he retires in the afternoon, he wouldn't come back till later in the afternoon for darshan. So Swami had completed all his duties in the morning and he had retired. And all of a sudden, one of the deers in that cage started screaming very, very painfully and very woefully. It was a loud, heart-wrenching scream. And the devotees around Old Bungalow, they were worried that, Swami had just retired and Swami should not get disturbed. But then nobody could, see the reason behind this deers shouting out like that. They don't know why it is so disturbed. But before they could figure out all this, Swami's door opens, bangs open like that, and Swami is swiftly walking out. Even as this deer is crying out, Swami swiftly walks out. And even as he's stepping out, he's looking at the students there and says, quickly, quickly go cut some apples and get some. And he sends them away, and Swami swiftly walks down. And as he's walking down, he instructs those people, open the cage, open the cage. And by the time Swami enters the cage, a plate with apples has been brought to Swami. And Swami picks up some of those apple pieces and goes to this deer which has been crying, and Swami feeds it lovingly. And everybody is watching this, and this deer, clearly the sight was so beautiful. This deer called out, and Swami rushes out and feeds it apple. And Swami pats the deer, and Swami says, okay, Bangaru. Something to the effect of, go safely and come. Poira Bangaru, something like that. Swami blesses this deer. And people around were not sure what was happening here. Swami blesses the deer and walks away. Before Swami goes away, the deer actually puts its head on Swami's feet as though it is taking Padnamaskar. And then Swami walks away, and within few minutes, they find that this deer sits down and breathes its last. The beautiful thing was that this was apparently one of the first deers to come to Swami. What name did that deer call out? Did that deer say Sai? Did that deer say Swami? It called out, making noises that were natural to it. But it reached the same Lord, and he responded. When all names are his, why should he say, my name is Sai? Why should he insist that this one name is mine? In one of the discourses, Swami very beautifully says, when you talk of the Lord and you give him all kinds of names, there is only one name which is actually truly suitable to the Lord. And Swami says the name is Pranava Mantra, the Omkara. That alone is suitable name for the Lord. The reason is, according to our scriptures, it says that all human language has come from Pranava Mantra. So the 3 syllables of A, U, and Im, Swami says, contains in it all words and all names and all expressions of verbal nature. So when you say the Lord's name is Om, it means you can give him any name, he will respond to it. And the Lord, who can be called by any name, he comes and says, call me Sai. Similarly, when you look at the form of the Lord, we've heard Swami make this statement so many times. He says, Sarvam Kaluvidam Brahma. All that you see is divine. What do you mean by all that you see is divine? Which means anything that has a form is divine in nature. Whatever that you can see, what I can see only that which has a form. My limitation of the eye is such that for me to be able to see something, it should have a physical form. And when the scriptures declare Sarvam Kaluvidam Brahma, anything that you can see is divine, which means anything which has a form is divine. And as a corollary, any form is the form of the divine. That being the case, that Supreme Lord who is beyond all forms, takes one particular form, and that form becomes special for you and me, isn't it? Recently, I think we had released one uh, video of a guided meditation that was based on what Swami had told one old student who was trying to practice meditation. So Swami said, it's very simple. I'll give you a very simple technique of meditation. Swami said, you don't have to do anything. You just have to sit, close your eyes, and recollect my form, my image, from the tip of my hair to the tip of my toe. And that's the best form of meditation that you can practice. If all forms are divine, why is it when I meditate only on one form? If all names are his, why is it when I do japam, I chant only one name? Of course, the whole process of ekagrata is being inculcated, one-pointedness. And from that one-pointedness, Swami says, from the multi-pointed mind, you can make it the one-pointed mind. The one-pointed mind is then dissolved to a state of mindlessness. And for this process, that one form becomes suitable. So when the Supreme Master makes an advent, all names are his, but one name becomes special, which we love calling, which we love contemplating upon. Everything around me is divine. Every object that I interact with, that I see, that I use, is divine by nature. But when the Lord takes an advent, makes an advent, one form becomes suitable as dhyaya, something which can be meditated upon. In the same way, when the Lord is omnipresent, even though he is everywhere, he is as much there in your living room, in your continent, as he is there here. Still, one place becomes very, very sacred because he chose that place as his Janma Bhumi. Right? That place becomes a kshetra. And this the Lord repeatedly does. Right? He says yuga after yuga. When yuga after yuga is one prominent avatar comes. But Swami would say, not yuge yuge, pade pade, he says. At every step that is required, the Lord manifests. And when the Lord manifests, he creates these things, right? He creates a name which becomes a mantra, a form which becomes worthy of contemplation, and a place which becomes sacred to come and spend time in. The many examples Swami gives, and one of the things he says is, say you go to the doctor, you're not keeping well, and you go to the doctor, and the doctor says you need to undergo surgery. So who's going to do the surgery? The doctor says, I will do the surgery. So you're sitting in the consultation room of the doctor, and the doctor says, you need a surgery, I will do the surgery. So the patient says, can you do the surgery now? Can it happen now? He says, no, not right now and not right here. You will have to come to the operation theater. The one who is going to do the operation is in front of you. The one who is going to get operated is you, who is sitting there. And you're in the hospital, but yet this surgery cannot be done everywhere. There are some places which are made specifically for this purpose. In the same way, the transformation of your heart and my heart is going to happen in my heart and your heart, right? It is not going to happen elsewhere. And the one who is going to transform that is also within. But at the same time, a physical surgery done to the body requires certain, you need a certain setup for that. You need to sterilize that whole place. The same doctor needs to come to you in a certain form, right? A consultation doctor is different from a surgeon, even if it is the same person, because he prepares himself differently. He prepares you differently. In the same manner, when there is a surgery that needs to be done to this mind, lifetimes of vasanas have to be surgically removed from this mind for us to be able to see that he is everything and he is everywhere. For this surgery, sometimes we need to be in a special place. And coming to Prasanthi Nilayam is coming to that special surgical ward and submitting yourself completely to the Lord. Right? There is, I mean, in a physical sense, there is no other time when we surrender ourselves to another person, isn't it? You literally let that other person knock you off your consciousness. You trust him or her completely with all your vitals and all your organs. In the same manner, we come to the Lord, the Supreme Lord, and we surrender ourselves. And that is where this beautiful theme that you have chosen for this entire year's illumination comes. Karishye Vachanam Tava. I will come to that. As I said, it's a very dear topic to me. In the meanwhile, if there is anything that you would like to ask, if there are any questions that you'd like me to address, just so that I don't make this a long and boring monologue. If anything is there you want me to clarify in what I've said so far, I'd be happy to do that before dwelling on this theme, Karishye Vachanam Tava.
Sai Ram, brother, thank you for sharing some beautiful metaphors. I think what you just said about how every place has a specific purpose, and in a way, you know, Swami's built this super specialty hospital, but Parthi is that for all of us, we may not need the physical hospital, but that metaphorical one, we just have to submit ourselves. Such a beautiful analogy. Thank you. Brother, we had a couple of questions that came in. So just if anyone would like to ask questions, please feel free to post in the Q&A box. No one else will be able to see your questions, only the panelists. So feel free to ask. Now, one of the questions that we've received is, in that same 1968 discourse from Hyderabad, Swami says, "Have no desires to place before God for whatever he does with you, however he treats you, is the gift he likes best to give you." What is your advice on cultivating that sense of presence in our sadhana? And I think you just sort of touched on that then, but if you'd...
Sure. So I often say this, this question of, do you really ask Swami for anything, or do you open yourself to his blessings and let him give you and let him choose what he feels is best for you? Well, I can tell you don't ask, but I don't know if that will help, right? Because if I have a desire and if Swami is the person I'm looking to satisfy my desires, I'm going to ask Swami that. The goal is to get to a point where we don't feel the necessity to ask, right? That's the whole idea. And that is the maturity that hopefully will come through in this journey that we are undertaking. So to start with, I always say this, let's say I have some plan for my future. I have some idea that this is how I should go about achieving financial security in my life, or this is what I would like to become at the end of 10 years or whatever it is. And if I go in front of Swami and I say, Swami, this is what I want for my life, I think it is okay. I feel it is nothing wrong in expressing your desires to Swami. But with time, what I've personally tried to do in my own journey of praying to Swami is, I just, that humility that is required, what we are speaking about, what Swami mentions even in this discourse a few times, the humility that is required is when you stand in front of Swami and say, Swami, I think this is good for me. I think this will make me happy, but you know better. Like just that, I know it's a wrong thing to say probably, but add a little bit of self-doubt. We always speak of being confident, but humility comes with a little bit of self-doubt, where you say that, Swami, I think this is good for me, but I may not be right. So I believe you are a better person to decide what is good for me. So don't stop praying for what you want, but along with that, add this prayer that, Swami, I am given to foolish prayers. So I make my prayer, but uh, I hope that you will decide what is best for me. And I think with time, as I said, the maturity will come where we don't need to make that prayer at all. That when you come to a point where you say that there's no point in asking him anything because he's all the time giving me what I need. So there is no gap between a need and fulfillment. So I think that state will come eventually. Till then, make your prayers and maybe just say that, Swami, I could be wrong. You give it to me if it is good for me.
Thank you, brother. We have another question. Sai Ram, brother, I really struggle to listen to Swami's discourses. I don't know if it's a language thing, and I find it really hard to read them. Do you have any suggestions on where to start?
It's absolutely all right. uh, as I keep saying, we have sat right in front of Swami and we've let the whole discourse go above our head, right? So we, I mean, we have no excuses for that. It's, I mean, we come from different stages in our own spiritual journey. For some, it is very interesting to read Swami's discourses because, for some who have had a lot of inner questioning that is happening, a lot of reasoning that has been going on in the mind. When you read Swami's discourses, you find that clarity comes through. Even otherwise, sometimes, as I said, the audience that Swami is addressing is so varied that sometimes you will read a discourse and you perhaps will never be able to make sense of it or be able to relate to it. It's completely all right. Swami gives a very beautiful example. He gives it in the context of Namasmarana, but it is very true even for this attempt to read Swami's discourses. Swami says, when a child is being introduced to solid food, Swami would often perform that ceremony of Annaprashna, where you give the first morsel of solid food to the child. The child is still then, used to drinking the mother's milk, and its mother's milk is the easiest form of nourishment that you can get, right? And suddenly now you're introducing solid food into the mouth and you're telling you have to chew it, you have to masticate it, and then you have to swallow it. The child is lazy. It doesn't really want to do that. So Swami says, what does the mother do with the mother or the elders in the family? They keep giving little by little of that food and impressing upon the child that this is important. This is how food is going to be eaten in future. So you better learn to do it. So little by little, Swami says that the child protests, it spits out the food, then slowly, from semi-solid food to slowly a little more solid food is given, and then eventually we get so fond of solid food that we get into all the other kind of problems later in life. Similarly, a very similar thing needs to be done when we are studying Swami's literature or any spiritual literature for that matter. Take it little by little. If you're not able to read a whole discourse, absolutely all right. Read just a few lines. Think of those few lines for the rest of the day, right? Because that's the most important thing. It's not about just putting the food in the mouth. It's about chewing it. It's about slowly taking in the nourishment. And at the risk of saying something blasphemous, the wisdom does not lie in the discourse, right? The wisdom that is trying to be awakened is within each one of us. There is no doubt about that. Swami is within us, and Swami is going to bring enlightenment from within us. The reason why we are reading these discourses only for a couple of very practical, simple reasons. One of the things is, it is me telling my mind that I'm doing something that's important. When I force myself to listen to a discourse, when I force myself to read something that Swami has written, I am telling my own mind that this activity is important for me. And with time, the mind prepares itself to receive this. Right? I think that is one of the most important reasons why we should make it a habit to read. And the second thing is, see, this is our commitment to Swami, right? When I repeatedly say that Swami is my guru, Swami is very dear to me, then whatever comes from him should get that value from me. I should be there to give that value to whatever comes from Swami. So sometimes, as I said, it is not wrong that you will read a discourse and you will find it completely beyond you. You're not able to relate to it at all. There are, even now, there are passages in some of Swami's Vahinis that I read and I really can't make any sense of it. I know that there is sense. The faith is there that there is sense in it, but I can't make of it right now. I'm not able to draw that sense right now. So be patient. As I said, keep this in mind, that the wisdom is not in the discourse. The wisdom is actually in you, and the discourse is only a means by which you're trying to excavate that wisdom from within you. So just keep it as a spiritual practice, as you're offering to Swami. You telling Swami that, Swami, you are dear to me, so your words are dear to me. I will keep engaging with it till a point comes where Swami says that the child takes a liking for the food, and then you don't have to force it to eat. The eating will happen very naturally, and you will start finding that, it's a cycle that will get triggered. More questions will come in your mind, and when those questions come, and when you start finding answers for it in random discourses, it'll become like a treasure hunt after that, right? And then that interest will come automatically. It's a beautiful journey to start on. There will be a few hiccups on the way, but keep at it.
Thank you so much, brother. I think, like you said, more questions will come in your mind. Many questions are coming in the chat box, but they're quite complex, and I think we'll take some time to answer. So, in the interest of time, brother, I think let's move on to the next part. Perhaps if we get a chance, we can discuss some of these questions at another time.
Sure.
So, thank you.
So we will continue with the theme that I said is a beautiful theme that you've chosen, Karishye Vachanam Tava. I'm sure most of you would know the context in which it happens. These are words uttered by Arjuna at the end of the Bhagavad Gita. And he says to Krishna, I will do whatever you ask me to do. I will do as you command. But there's a very interesting statement. And Swami speaks of this statement as being uttered twice by Arjuna. He doesn't say it in as many words. Or he doesn't say that Arjuna said this at this point and then he said it at that point. But the emotion with which it was said was actually said twice. And interestingly, once before the Bhagavad Gita was given and once at the end of Bhagavad Gita. And that's why it's interesting. I will narrate a small episode. Again, as I said, those of you who've heard me speak on this topic before would have heard me narrate this episode. It's a very sweet episode that happened to one of my seniors. And this happened sometime around 96, when Swami was giving a series of discourses in the month of June, July, and August. Swami gave plenty of discourses. Every day Swami was giving discourses. And it happened that suddenly Swami stopped the discourses. The reason that was given by Swami, and I think even an announcement was made, that the students are having their internal exams, the mid-semester exams or something, and Swami doesn't want to bother them by these evening discourses. He wanted them to sit and study in the mandir. But the actual reason was something else. Apparently, Swami was upset about some students, and Swami had told the seniors, saying that, what's the point in me going on speaking? None of these students are listening to me and nobody's practicing anything. And Swami was put off by behavior of some students or something. And Swami said, I'm stopping these discourses. This was conveyed to the students, but what was told to devotees was that Swami is taking a break for this particular purpose. So this senior of mine, who was at that point in the 11th standard, they were all in the hostel, they were worrying, they were all huddling up and they're saying, what can we do? Swami is upset with us. How do we seek Swami's forgiveness? So they were trying all kinds of things. nothing was working out. And it so happened that it was Swami was not even coming to the student side. Swami was not taking any letters from the student side. So there was no opportunity even to convey anything to Swami. So this student who was in 11th standard, he said, this can't be. Let me try to do something about it. So he writes a long letter to Swami. He says something like 4 pages back and forth. A long letter, in all his innocence and all his purity, he writes this letter to Swami. And he's holding it sitting in the portico. That day, Swami comes out of the interview room, comes straight to this boy, picks up the letter, and goes back into the interview room. Swami was not taking letters from anyone, but that day, Swami comes and takes his letter. And Swami goes away. Barely a few minutes, not enough time to go through the whole letter. Swami comes out. And Swami walks out to the portico where this boy is sitting. And Swami asks, where is Arjuna? Right? He asks, where is Arjuna? This boy thought that Swami is asking for his classmate whose name was Arjun. So he said, Swami, he was just sitting here. I think he just got up and went for some water. Swami said, no, not Arjun. Where is that Arjuna, the letter Arjuna? And then it occurred to this boy, of the many things that this boy had written in the letter, he had written something about Arjuna in that letter. He had said something like Swami, Arjuna and Krishna, that relationship, something had made a reference to that. So he said, Swami, I only wrote that letter. Swami said, get up. So this boy knelt down in front of Swami. And Swami said, repeat after me. He said, yes, Swami. And Swami said, Karishye. The boy repeated, Karishye Vachanam Tava. Tava. As though like a mantra. Swami made him repeat it 3 times. And this boy repeated it. And Swami said, take Pad Namaskar. And he bent down and Swami gave him a resounding slap on his back. And Swami said, good boy. And from the next day, Swami kind of resumed, I don't know whether he resumed giving the discourses, but he started talking to the students and things like that. And things went back to normal. This boy, as I said, was in his 11th standard. Years went by and he never had the opportunity to discuss this with Swami again. Then this boy was in MBA, right? He had finished his 11th and 12th and 3 years of BCom in Vrindavan. And then he had come for his MBA, I think. When one day Swami had called him for an interview and he was all by himself in Swami's presence. And Swami asked him, do you have any questions? So then this boy remembered this episode and he said, Swami, this happened when I was in 11th standard. You asked me to repeat this mantra. I want to know from you, why did you ask me to do it? Imagine after so many years, and Swami asks him, what did you write in that letter that day about Arjuna? And this boy said, he'd written something very cheeky, right? And I mean, just in that young age, he just took the courage to say something like that to Swami. And he had written there, he said, Swami, why have you stopped talking to us? Of the many explanations he had written there, one of the arguments that he had written is, Swami, Arjuna was going to do something wrong, right? He wanted to leave the battlefield and run away. When Arjuna was going to do something wrong, Krishna gave him a discourse to correct him. So this boy had written, Swami, if we are doing something wrong, as students, if we are doing something wrong, it's all the more reason for you to speak to us. Like how Krishna spoke to Arjuna and corrected him. How is it that you're not correcting us? Isn't it important that you should speak to us now when you say that we are doing something wrong? So a very beautiful argument that he had made in that letter. And Swami asked him, do you think Krishna gave Arjuna the discourse of the Gita just like that? He said, I don't know, Swami. Then Swami explained, Arjuna promised to Krishna, Karishye Vachanam Tava. He says, Arjuna promised to Krishna, I will do as you command. And that is why Krishna said, okay, now I'll give you the Bhagavad Gita. And Swami said, that is why I made you promise that day, Karishye Vachanam Tava. As I said, this is a statement which comes in the Bhagavad Gita towards the end, right? The last few shlokas, the last shloka where Arjuna speaks. But Swami says that Arjuna said this before the Bhagavad Gita itself, because much before the Bhagavad Gita, Swami explains about a few episodes, right? We all would have heard that episode of Krishna taking Arjuna for a walk, showing a bird, and he says that's a pigeon. And Arjuna says it's a pigeon. And then Krishna says, no, it's not a pigeon, it looks like a crow. And Arjuna says, yes, it's a crow. Then Krishna says, no, it's not a crow, look carefully, it's a peacock. Arjuna says, yes, it's a peacock. And then, Krishna turns to Arjuna and says, don't you have a mind of your own? Why are you repeating whatever I say? Then Arjuna says, Krishna, I can tell it's a crow or it's a bird or whatever it occurs to me, but I know that you can change it to anything that you want it to be. So it is wise to accept whatever you say, because whatever you say is the truth. Swami would quote this example, this episode, and say that this is how Krishna tested Arjuna whether he was ready for the receiving Bhagavad Gita from him. And in the second chapter in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna actually tells Krishna, he says, I'm very, very confused. I don't know what is right and wrong. Accept me as your disciple and ask me to do what you want me to do. Right? Which means he says, I'm surrendering to you, Shadimam. He says, Shadimam Twam Prapanna. I am surrendering to you at your feet. I will do whatever you tell me to do, but accept me as your disciple and explain. So the first time he says Karishye Vachanam Tava is an expression of his surrender. He looks at Krishna and says, I will do whatever you tell me to do. The second time when he says Karishye Vachanam Tava, it is a submission of full wisdom. He says, now I have clarity. Right? In that shloka, that's what he says. Now my delusion has been removed. Now I have clarity, and now I will do what you tell me to do. And Swami explains this very beautifully. He says the trick that Krishna plays. Just a few shlokas before Arjuna says Karishye Vachanam Tava, Krishna actually tells Arjuna that do as you please. I have told you whatever I need to tell. I have given you all the explanations. However you feel like acting, you act. And that's what Krishna says. Act as you please. And then Arjuna says, Karishye Vachanam Tava. Now, if you really look at it, if Krishna wanted to say, do as you please, then why did he have to change Arjuna's actions in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita? Right? He wanted to go away. What pleased him was to leave the battlefield. There, Arjuna was not allowed to do what he wanted to do. But at the end of the discourse, after the clarity was given, when Krishna had the confidence that now if I tell Arjuna, do as you please, he will say Karishye Vachanam Tava. When the Guru has the confidence in you that when you are allowed to do as you please, you will do the right thing, then the Guru will give you the freedom. Then you are entitled to the freedom. So the second time, the actual time, if you really look at it, when Arjuna says Karishye Vachanam Tava, he was qualified to act as he pleases. And at that time, when the freedom was given, he said, now with this freedom, I will do what you tell me to do. And this really is the journey of the sadhaka. That's what we all are trying to start. As I said, it starts with submission. It starts with you going to that surgeon and saying that I'm surrendering myself to you. That is the first Karishye Vachanam Tava. But at the end of this journey, when the Lord looks at us and says, you can do as you please, I should be able to tell him with confidence, yes, now me acting as I please will be exactly as you please. Whatever I do will be your command. Whatever I do will be a reflection of what you want me to do. That is the whole journey. There was this beautiful episode, I'll perhaps conclude with that, where Swami was talking to a set of students in the interview room, And Swami asked them, what according to you is the spiritual journey? What according to you is the goal of the spiritual journey? I think that was the question Swami asked. So each one was giving their own understanding and theoretical knowledge. And suddenly one of the students said, Swami, it is the river merging in the ocean. And Swami seemed to like this statement a lot. He said, wow, mirror merging in the ocean. And Swami kept repeating that in the mind, repeating that. Ah, the river merging in the ocean, river merging in the ocean. And then suddenly Swami looked at the students and Swami said, the river living as the ocean. The river, once it merges the ocean, the river becomes the ocean, right? The river living as the ocean, Swami said, is the beginning of the spiritual journey. Look at that. The river living as the ocean is not the end or the culmination of this journey, but is the beginning of the spiritual journey. When I look at Swami and say, Karishye Vachanam Tava, the Karishye Vachanam Tava should not end with only me making that submission. I should stand before Swami and give him the confidence that he can look at me and say, Bangaru, do as you please. Swami saying do as you please also is having two kinds of do as you please. Sometimes when Swami gets exasperated and doesn't, is not able to convince you, he'll say, okay, ni ishtam, do as you please. It shouldn't be that do as you please. It should be this do as you please that Krishna told Arjuna at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, where he had the confidence in Arjuna that now when I say do as you please, what Arjuna does is what Krishna would expect Arjuna to do. So this Karishye Vachanam Tava is the beginning of the journey to a point where we should be able to stand in front of Swami and with confidence say, Karishye Vachanam Tava, which means Swami, whatever happens through this body-mind complex, whatever happens through this instrument will be what you would want me to act. As a son, what you want me to act, that is what I will do. As a father, as a mother, as an employer, as an employee, as a citizen, whatever I do is what you would expect me to do. And that is when the river starts living as the ocean. And that is the whole journey, right? The river discovering itself in the ocean. And this is what we are trying to do. At the end of it, we are just going to wake up and say that, okay, I moved from nowhere to nowhere. I have not become anything because I was always what I am. But there is a journey happening. There is a change that is taking place. And it is important for each one of us to commit to that change. I'll probably end with a few lines from that same discourse where Swami says, and I quote, if you know the road and the goal, then you can discover whether you are progressing or not. Otherwise, how can you? The goal is to enlarge your vision, your sympathy, your love to the extent that God has spread his love, his compassion, and his grace. So be ever watchful to see that you strive to take in more and more of God into you. So this is the journey, and it's important for each one of us to keep assessing the journey. This journey is not one of seniority. Oh, I have been 20 years in Prasanthi Nilayam, so I am an advanced sadhaka. I really wish I could say that. It really doesn't work that way. It's not how many years you've spent doing this or how many years you've been Swami's devotees. This is the literally like the dip test that we need to do. Is my peace becoming like the peace that Swami embodied? Is the ananda that I'm experiencing becoming same as the ananda that I saw Swami experiencing right in front of us? Is the love that I am having for everyone around as selfless, as unconditional as the love that I received from Swami? If this is happening, then the river is becoming the ocean. If it is not happening, the journey is still in progress. right? So with that, I offer these words at Bhagwan's lotus feet, and I thank you all for the opportunity. As always, I wish you all the best, not merely for this pilgrimage, but for the pilgrimage of life itself, which we all are co-pilgrims in. I'm just playing the role of a speaker today, but we all are learning and moving together in this. Thank you, Sai Ram.